Recall that every krit pratyaya as a default, as a starting point, is used to denote the agent of the action. The agent of the action. That is by the Sutram 3467. Kartari krit. Kartari krit. But then we also know that 3470 says Tayoreva krityakta khalarthaha. By this we know that the affix kta is to be used only in the passive. Tayoreva bhavakarmanoho eva. Now we're going to study a sutram which gives a very important special cases I should say, where the affix kta may be used in the active as well as in the passive. It may be used kartari as well as bhavakarmanoho, and that very important sutram is 3472. 3472. It says gatyartha karmaka shlisha shing sthasa vasa jana ruha jiryatibhyascha. Gatyartha karmaka shlisha shing sthasa vasa jana ruha jiryatibhyascha. And the vritti of this sutram says kartari ktah syat bhavakarmanoscha. Ebhyaha kartari ktah syat bhavakarmanoscha. So that is the vritti. Now what this sutram is saying is that following these verbal roots, the affix ktah may be used to denote the agent of the action as well as to denote the act or the object of the action. So it can be used either way. Now, if you look at the list of verbal roots in this sutram, first one is a class of verbal root which is gatyartha dhatavaha. Gatyartha dhatavaha. Gatyartha means in the sense of motion, any kind of motion. Let's take a very famous example. Ramo vanangataha. Ramo vanangataha. Sri Ramaha Vanangataha. Rama has gone to the forest. Now, clearly Rama is the doer of the action. It is obvious. So, without this sutram, we would not be able to justify this usage because so far we only had 3470. Tayoreva kritya kita khalarthaha. So, that allowed us to use the affix kta only in the passive. But here, Ramo Vanangataha, the affix kta in the form gataha is used in the active sense, because Rama is the one who went to the forest. He was not gone to, but he went. He is the goer. He went to the forest. So this is a gatyartha dhatu gam gatau. So this is a very important case, isn't it? That these verbal roots which denote motion, following these verbal roots, the affix kta may be used to denote the agent of the action also. Now, it doesn't have to be used to denote the agent, because sutram has the cha at the end, at the sutram. 3472 ends with cha. So that cha tells us that they may also be used bhavakarmano. For example, Ramena gatam. Ramena gatam. The act of going was done by Rama. So Rama is the one who did the action of going. Simply in English we say Rashi Ramaha went. Now, first of all, notice one thing is that even if we have a sakarmaka dhatu like gam, it doesn't have to take an object all the time. Following a sakarmaka dhatu, the speaker has a choice. He may or may not want to specify the object of the going. So, Ramena gatam is also possible as a bhave prayogaha. Bhave, just to denote the action. So Ramena gatam means that the act of going was done by Ramaha. The act of going. So Ramaha went. We can also say Ramena vanam gatam. Ramena gatam vanam. Now here this is karmani now. This gatam is now qualifying that vanam. So the forest was gone to by Sri Ramaha. The forest was gone to by Sri Rama. So you see all these three usages. First one was Ramo Vanangataha. Here this is Kartariktaha. The Gataha is Kartariktaha. It's qualifying Sri Ramaha. So which means that Ramaha is the one who went to the forest. Then we can say Bhave. Ramena Gatam. Sri Ramena Gatam means the action of going was done by Sri Ramaha. We can also say Ramena Vanam Gatam. The forest was gone to by Sri Ramaha. So the Ramena Gatam is Bhave Prayogaha. Just denote the action. Ramena Vanangatam is the karmani pravaga. Because this gatam, in the last example, Ramena Vanangatam, This gatam is qualifying vanam, which is the object of the going. So, following these verbal roots, the affix kta may be used kartari. It may also be used bhavakarmanoho, because Panini says cha at the end of the sutram, and that cha brings the anuvritti of bhavakarmanoho down also. Now, the second class of verbal roots is akarmaka dhatavaha. Actually, before we go there, this sense of motion can be any kind of motion. Any kind of motion. For example, take another example. We can say that Gangam praptaha. Gangam praptaha. This is Siddhanta Kaumudi. Gangam praptaha. It means someone, masculine, reached the Ganga. Reached. That's also a motion. To reach somewhere. To reach somewhere is also motion. So as long as there is some kind of motion involved, this affix kta may be used kartari as well as bhavakarmanoho, following that verbal root. Okay, so that is with regard to motion. This is a very important class of verbal roots following which the affix kta may be used kartari. Now before going on, one more thing I'd like to mention is that many times in English books we see this term past passive participle. This affix kta is referred to as past passive participle. There's nothing wrong with the term as such, because why is it the term justified? Because it is past, because this Sutram Nishtha 32102 comes in the Adhikara of Bhute, which starts from 3284. So that's why it is past, using the past tense. It's passive because 3470 says Tayoreva Kritya Ktak Khalarthaha. The affix kta may be used only in the passive. And then it's a participle. Participle means Krit Pratyaha, because this Sutram 32102 comes in the Adhikara of Kridating, Kridating, from which starts from 3193. So that is how we get the term past passive participle. But we know right now we are studying 3472, where there are these important situations when this affix kta may also be used active, in the active sense, like Ramo Vanangataha. So even though the past passive participle is a good term, we should be careful that it is not passive all the time. And in fact, we are going to study a sutram next, which will allow us to use this affix kta in the present tense also. So sometimes this affix kta may be used in the present tense also. So that is why be careful of this term past passive participle, which is used to denote the affix kta, because there are important situations where this affix kta is used in the active sense, in the sense of the agent. And the affix kta may also sometimes be used in the present tense. So it is sometimes neither passive nor past. So that's why I avoid using this term past passive participle, because even though as a default it is correct, it has important exceptions, so we should be careful of that. Now, the affix ktavatu is called the past active participle. Past active participle. That one is okay, because we don't have these important exceptions to that. Because that also is past, because the same nishtha affix in the adhikara of bhute, 32102 comes in the adhikara of bhute, starts from 3284, so it is past. But the ktavatu is in the active sense, which we already noted, because it's a default 3467. Kartari krit, so it is in the active sense, and it's a participle, it's a krit pratyaya, because it comes in the adhikara of kridating. So the past active participle, that's ktavatu. The past passive participle is called kta, but as I said, that it has important exceptions, so we should avoid using that term too much. Okay, let's continue with this sutram now. Now akarmaka. Akarmakebhyaha. In Sutram, Panini says Gatyartha Karmaka. So Akarmaka Dhatavaha means intransitive verbs. Intransitive verbs. For example, let's take an example here. Let's take the dhatu glai harshakshaye. Glai harshakshaye. Bhadiganaha. So glai means to be worn out or depressed or fatigued. To be glai. And so we can have a sentence like as given in the Siddhanta Kaumudi, glanaha saha glanaha. So he is fatigued or he is depressed, he is worn out. Now here this is used in the active sense. He himself is the agent, the doer of the action of being fatigued, or being tired, being depressed. So glanaha saha. So this is in the active sense. Now this can also be used in the passive. Tena glanam. So the action of being fatigued was done by him. Now, if we have a akarmaka dhatu, by the definition itself, this cannot take an object. So following akarmaka dhatu, we can use this affix kta to denote the agent, using the Sutram 3472. Can also be used bhave to denote the action or the act. In this case, the act of being fatigued or depressed. So tena glanam, the act of being fatigued was done by him. So he was tired, he was fatigued. But it cannot be used karmani. Akarmaka dhatu, there is no, it doesn't take an object. The example which we saw before, Ramena Vanangatam. We will not get a similar example here with this dhatu glai harshakshaye because this is akarmaka dhatu. It cannot take an object. So following akarmaka dhatu, we can use the affix kta, kartari. We can use it bhave also, but there is no question of using it karmani because it cannot take an object. Now, so that is the second class of verbal roots. First one we saw was gatyartha dhatavaha, then akarmaka dhatavaha, and then Panini has given a list of verbal roots over here in this sutram, and they are as follows. The first is shlish. Shlish. This is the dhatu in the dhatu patha listed as shlisha alingane. Shlisha alingane, the divadiganaha. The second one is shing. This is in the dhatu patha listed as Shing Swapne from the Adadiganaha. The third one is Stha. Stha is of course well known to us, Prasiddha Dhatuho, which is Shtha Gati Nivruttau from the Bhvadiganaha. Dhatu in the Dhatu Patha is Shtha Gati Nivruttau from the Bhvadiganaha. Then the Dhatu As. Asa Upaveshane from the Adadiganaha. The next one is the dhatu vas, which is vasanivase from the bhadiganaha, vasanivase. The next one is the dhatu jan, jani pradurbhave from the divadiganaha, jani pradurbhave. Then the dhatu ruh, and that is in dhatu patha as ruh, bija janmani pradurbhave cha. This dhatu listed in the dhatu patha as ruha, bija janmani pradurbhave cha in the bhadiganaha. The last one is the dhatu jiru, and that in the dhatu part is listed as jirush, vayohanau in the divadiganaha, jirush, vayohanau, divadiganaha. So following these verbal roots also, this affix kta may be used in the active sense as well as in the passive. Now one question comes is that these dhatus, they are akarmaka dhatavaha. Now, why do we need to mention them separately? Why has Panini mentioned them separately? Because already Panini says akarmaka. Then why again list shlisha, shing, sthasa, vasajana, ruha, jiratibhyascha? And the Kashika gives the answer as shlishadayaha, sopasargaha, sakarmakaha bhavanti. Tadartham esham upadanam. Which means that in connection with the upasarga, when upasarga is used, these verbal roots can become sakarmaka. At that time also, the affix kta may be used to denote the agent of the action. So yes, without upasarga, they are akarmaka dhatavaha. But when upasarga is present, then they may become sakarmaka. So that is why Panini listed them separately in the sutram. In addition to saying akarmaka, again Panini lists these verbal roots to allow for those cases when upasarga is used and these verbal roots may become sakarmaka dhatavaha. At that time also, this affix kta may be used in the sense of the agent of the action. For example, let us take the dhatu as. Just one example, dhatu as. Now as is to sit. This is akarmaka dhatu. This doesn't take an object. But let's say now we add upasarga upa. Now upa plus as. This is a sakarmaka dhatu. Upasa means to worship or to adore. So we can say in the Kashika example he gives is that upasito gurum bhavan means you, sir, worship the guru. You are the one who worshipped the guru. Upasito gurum bhavan. So this is in the active sense. Upasitaha gurum bhavan. You can use the active sense because Panini has listed the verbal root as specifically in 3472. Now, it may also be used bhava karmanoho. For example, you can say, if you want to say bhave, you can say upasitam bhavata. Just like we had ramena gatam. Well, upasitam bhavata means the act of worshipping was done by you, sir. Or we can also use karmani. Upasito gurur bhavata. The teacher was worshipped by you, sir. So this is karmani. So this is one example of how verbal root listed in this 3472, in this case as, will be used in all three senses. In kartari, which would not have been possible unless we had this sutram 3472, but doesn't have to be kartari, it may also be used bhava karmanoho. So we can say upasito gurum bhavan, that's the kartari prayogaha. We may say upasitam bhavata as bhave. We can also say upasito gurur bhavata karmani. So this is a very important sutram 3472. Please make a note of it, because we will be seeing many examples when the affix kta is not used bhava karmanoho, but it is used kartari, and at that time we have to come to this sutram and see if we can justify that active usage just of the affix kta by this sutram 3472.